Welcome to No Spin Rodeo. This is our second episode, and we're excited to be here. I want to introduce the cast and crew of our No Spin Rodeo team. In the production booth is Greg Teagarden with Barona Productions. How are you doing today, Greg?
Good. I'm thankful for everybody joining in, and I'm looking forward to a good episode today.
Yeah, that'll be fun. Will you just make sure my voice sounds deep and tough, okay? And then the queen, the pilot, the lady that puts color into rodeo journalism. Thank you for being here. And my co-host, it's Kendra Santos. How are you, Kendra?
The person who's been called black and white her whole life puts color into it. But anyway.
I think you do. Listen, it really irritates me because most of our listeners will probably agree. If you want to figure out the details of an injury or anything else, you better follow Kendra Santos because nobody else in the game is telling you anything. It's just the facts. They just say, well, guess what? This happened. Well, good. We need to know what's going on. That's why you put color in the coloring book of rodeo.
I don't know. These are my people. These are your people. These are our people. The rodeo family is a real thing. It's not, a cool catchphrase, right? So
rodeo journalism probably needs to go ahead and take a step up and get a little better at giving us some more color. That's just my opinion, personal narrative, and maybe they could take note by watching some of your posts. Well, we're going to start today's show with what's happening in the rodeo news, and I'm going to hand it over to Kendra. Kendra?
Well, there's nothing on anyone else's mind. Our rodeo family just lost Trenton Montero, and for the last 3 weeks, Trenton's injury has had us all praying hard. For those who don't know, Trenton, 2019 NFR bareback rider, Columbia River circuit champion. On opening night earlier this month, on August 10th, at the rodeo in Homedale, Idaho, Trenton made it typical Trenton ride, a winning ride. He was 79 points. It was opening night, and by the end of the rodeo, he was half a point off of first, ended up second. After the whistle, it was just one of those freak accident things that happened. The horse fell over on top of him, and what we knew early was that, his old bronc rider friend, Joe Harper, said that, Trenton jumped up, running on adrenaline, and got up out of there on his own 2 feet. But what we knew early was that, he had broken ribs, he broke his sternum, he broke his pelvis on both sides. It was bad, but the internal injuries were worse than broken bones. And part of that included an aortic aneurysm that required a surgical stent placement. By the time we got to August 30th, he was 10, maybe 11 surgeries in. It takes me back to Lane Frost, only it all happened so fast with Lane, and by all accounts, we lost him in the arena at Cheyenne. In this case, I remember using the term when Lane died that, they tried everything modern medicine had to offer. And now all these years later, the same in this trauma center, it was just too much. And so Trenton and his wife, Maria, they had a brand new first baby, Noah, a few days before the accident. And I would also, for people who don't know, typical cowboy connections are always endless, but Trenton's family ties are also many. And the first person who let me know that he'd gotten so badly hurt was his great aunt, NFR barrel racer Linda Vick. She's also who let me know that Trenton didn't make it. Longtime bareback rider Stevie Smith, who's been a forever team roper since he stopped riding bucking horses, he's part of the family. The first person I've ever heard of being 5 seconds in the goat tying, now a roping, awesome cowgirl Suzanne Montero Williams is Trenton's aunt. There are so many more, including my own niece Kayla as part of that ranching and rodeo family from Winnemucca, Nevada. Anyway, it's like a gut punch when something like this happens. So The first thing I did when I got this news was reach out to my own 2 sons. This one hits us all so hard. So I reached out to Lane and Taylor, and Lane's the same age as Trenton and is also enjoying every minute of his first baby. He was born just a few months after Trenton, and my son Taylor's first NFR was the same as Trenton's in 2019. So we all went through the thrill of that back number ceremony and the surreal experience that's everybody's NFR when you're watching your kid down there in front of a packed house with the yellow buck and shoots, rope and shoots, whatever it is. Anyway, so the second thing I did last night after I heard that Trenton had headed to heaven at 31 years old was reach out to Casey Field. And my first NFR that I worked was 1987, and Louis Field owned those buck and shoots and became a very close friend of mine. And I've known Casey since Veronica was, letting him lean over the railing at the NFR to, hug or high five his dad. And Casey shared that NFR Bareback Riders locker room with Trenton. And Casey's also, in my eyes, in everyone's eyes, the gold standard of bareback riders. But when it comes to cowboys and, stand-up guys, sons, husbands, dads, they don't get any better than Casey Fields. So I don't know why, but he's who I reached out to. And his wife, Stephanie, was in town at volleyball practice. And so Casey was home being Mr. Mom and making pizza, but we had a great visit. And so I would love to just read what Casey Field had to say about Trenton. Casey said that this one hurts. I've had a few conversations with Trenton about being a dad, and his firstborn had just arrived a few days before the accident. Knowing the joy Trenton had about being a father is so tough to think about now. Trenton was one of the kindest souls I've ever been around. He did his own thing and was happy about life. I've seen Trenton take some pretty good wrecks, but he never once complained. He smiled and was always happy to be there. Trenton was a rare guy, one of those guys you crave to be around. You could just feel the pureness of his soul. He was an amazing competitor and one of the toughest guys I've ever been around my whole career. He didn't feel pain. You could see his shoulder hurt like crazy, but he still nodded with the same mentality and intensity every single time. To ride through pain and still be a fierce competitor says a lot about the size of your heart. Trenton's heart was huge, and whether it was his family, friends, or competing, he loved big and had a big heart for everything he did. It was fun to see Trenton make his first NFR and do well there. You could see the joy he was feeling in that locker room, and that time with Trenton was a very cool time in my career I'll never forget. I'm going to miss Trenton. It's going to be different without him here. It's just so sad. And the first thing I saw when I woke up this morning that I thought was so cool, Shane Proctor, world champion bull rider, shared a video of Trenton dancing with a broom at a wedding. And I thought, it was so cool with my, all these bags under my eyes today to laugh and appreciate that Trenton Montero did not, take himself too seriously or let foolish pride stop him from having a great time while he was here. And I just today and from here on out, I if I could say, I wish I could hug his family. I just would say, Maria, Noah, Glenn, and Susan, his brother Caden, sister Savannah, we are all just so sorry. And 31 years was not nearly enough. And God bless Trenton and all who loved him.
Trenton is in a much better place now. We have to believe that. It's very hard, but we have to. And the people that are left behind, you mentioned it, the parents, we all have that fear, right? It's going to go in the wrong order. And it petrifies me, I'll be honest. It's very scary. And then when you hear it happen, it just makes it that much worse. But anyway, one thing to remember, if you believe in, like I do, in something bigger than here, whatever you want to call it, good humans, go to good places. And I believe that. So I hope indeed that he's, you know, who probably, probably met him, Larry Mahan. I can see Larry walking up and saying, well, welcome up here, pal.
Come on, kid.
Come on, kid. You're a rookie. Let's do this together. So God bless the whole family. We're praying for you. And a little later in the show, we're going to give you the address. I think Kendra's posted it. I do challenge all of you two things. Reach down and see if you can't give monetary assistance to that family. It breaks my heart a little anyway, monetary assistance, but I would challenge everybody. And Kendra, I'm going to challenge you to remind me. So often in about 2 months, 3 months, that's when the family, and she's going to need the most help, when people kind of get back into the swing of life.
Yep.
And let's be good people and support this family, this beautiful wife and baby, emotionally, physically, and spiritually, a lot longer than a couple weeks after this incident. How about that?
Well, I will also share that we have some monumental passings, thankfully in life's proper order this week, as we say goodbye to Pete Longbreak, South Dakota ranch and rodeo cowboy, dad to NFR bronc rider Bud Longbreak. He just passed away. And Pete, who let me know, was Tom Reeves, world champion saddle bronc rider, and he was saying, Pete raised bucking horses for 60 years. When Bud and Tom were kids, they used to drive the bucking horses to town after school to practice. That's the kind of cool old cowboy character Pete Longbreak was. So thinking of the Longbreak family and thanking Pete for a life of, helping others in addition to his own. Another big loss this week was Mitzi Lucas Riley, daughter of famed iconic cowgirl Tad Lucas and mom to current Rodeo Historical Society president Kelly Riley. A dozen years ago was honored with the Tad Lucas Award, and she, by all accounts, was just a historic cowgirl figure. And Mitzi, I think if you could have tagged along in her childhood where her mom's, doing crazy things, a variety of wild things out in that arena, she was really something. And to grow up her daughter, but Mitzi was a lovely lady. And so we're sure thinking of the Rileys and the Lucas families at this time also.
Yeah, I grew up with Kelly Riley. Kelly Riley and my dad were really good friends, and I love Kelly Riley. He's been a family friend forever, and prayers to their family. And what a legends are what they are.
Yeah, they're wonderful people and friends to us all. Okay, to end this week's rodeo news on a high note, there's been a kind of a fun rodeo lost and found story. Two of them in the last 2 weeks, but a week ago it was the 1949 world champion Team Roper Buckle came to me from the universe. And this week it was a restaurant owner in Billings, Montana, found a ring. It looks like a class ring, and it says CHSRA on one side and 2014 on the other. And there was a name engraved on the inside. So someone told someone to contact me. So he did, wondering, this guy's like, I don't want anything. I'm from a ranching and rodeo family myself. He has a successful restaurant in Billings, Montana. Anyway, so I start digging and I'm like, CHSRA, could that be Colorado? No. Now I know that CSHSRA is Colorado. So CHSRA is California. So that 2014 is a year after my second son, Taylor, graduated. So, okay, who could this be? Well, the name on the inside is engraved Kendra. So there aren't very many Kendras. So I go digging back, like, what can I find? And the archives on their current website, they don't go back that far. So I call a person Stephanie Anderson, who works for Roper Sports News, who's Bob Fye's like right-hand woman for the last 40 years or whatever. She literally wrote on Bob's behalf the first check of my career for $50. Anyway, I call her and I'm like, could you dig up the June 2014 issue? Because they used to always run all the state finals qualifiers. Well, sure enough, there was a girl in the goat tying named Kendra Legge. So we find her on social media that she lives in Billings, Montana. Anyway, the happy ending is she's setting up a time to go meet this really nice ranching and rodeo couple that owns this restaurant. And she just got engaged a month ago. Now she's going to get this long lost ring back. And it's just super cool. It's, what were the odds? These people had given up a long time ago. They had tried posting about it. No leads, no nothing. And so, anyway.
Did he tell you where he found it?
He found it in his restaurant.
Oh, in his restaurant.
In Billings. But
so it's been sitting there for 10 years?
Well, I don't know how long it's been there. Here, she now lives in Billings, but she lost the ring a long time ago. So it's just, he's had it for a long time, and he hasn't kept it at the restaurant. He's kept it home for safekeeping with this dream of reuniting it with his owner. So anyway, it was just kind of cool because like a couple people went out of their way and we made somebody's day. So that's always.
Wait, you're the reuniter. I mean, this is the second episode. The first episode, you reunited old horses with old riders, and now you're reuniting rings with fingers. It's fantastic. That's good. Fun. That's good news. The one thing that I don't have much in rodeo news, but I do want to shout out to, we discussed going over who's currently winning the world and everything, and we think there's enough of that out there. But I would shout out to Riley Webb in the calf roping. And the reason that that I'd like to is that I just think he's a really good kid. And he's very respectful. He's talented. He roped at the Utah Days of 47 rodeo, and he had one calf for $1 million and missed. And I was pretty concerned about, his reaction in the interviews. He was just a pro at 19, right? And we have some young players in our sports that don't always act like pros at 19. And take note, because that maturity level and that pro is a good representation of our sport. So a shout out to Riley. He's winning. He's got a big lead. And so I think he's a good kid, and congrats, and keep it up and stay healthy. I read that he's going to keep rodeoing, which is fine. There's probably an argument on whether you ought to be selective now in the last run but Ty Murray said, we were in a PBR one time and I said, why'd you take that reride? I always take my rerides. Okay. And maybe that's the case. You just, you go head on, but sometimes business decisions probably should play into that, but
I also think that Riley Webb's a great kid. And he also just bought an amazing horse from Lane Livingston. I believe his name is Rudy. My son Taylor got to ride him at St. Paul last year. He's amazing. Here's what I think about Riley right now. He has a commanding lead. For those who have forgotten, he was on the good side of the big controversy that happened at Houston earlier this year. And there were, some haters and hecklers that, wanted to be like, well, he should refuse to take the money. Okay, really. So it wasn't his fault. He was also gracious with that, for a young guy. But here's what I see about him. To keep going would be zero surprise. I'd be shocked if he didn't, because Riley Webb, I think, is on a mission to win the world by a larger than $50,000 margin. And so he will not win the world if he has anything to say about it by anything less, right? And so, he just set an arena record this week, I think, at Kennewick. If you're waiting for him to back down, pack a lunch.
I'm not saying back down. I'm just saying be smart. With Riley making this will be, I think his second trip to the NFR. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of mind games. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot that can happen in 10 days. So it's probably wise for him to come in there with a pretty big lead. Now he might stay the course and just eat them all up, but the NFR proves to be a little different beast when they get there. So
Yeah, ask Shad Mayfield. When we were at Arlington, luckily he'd built up a tremendous lead. But I just, Riley's pulling out all the stops and leaving absolutely nothing to chance as when it comes to anything in his power or his control. And so I think also with, the NFR experience, everybody says the first time you back in the box, the NFR, it feels like 18,000 people are sitting on top of you. Like it's like nothing else. And he's been there. And to me, I think it's going to be, game on full press. Like he's not going to be thinking about the average. That's how he was raised, go for broke, and he will bring it. And it's going to be fun to watch.
It is going to be fun. So hats off to Riley. Keep it up. That's it for Rodeo News. Now what we want to do is let our listeners know that part of what we think will be great about this podcast is we really want to engage in a positive way with you, the listeners. And so what we've done is we've developed a way to text in comments or commentary, or you can call Tommy Joe an idiot or whatever. We've got a text line and we've got an email address to send in notes. Now we'll get those after the podcast and then we'll review them and we'll address anything that we deem to be addressable in the next podcast. So if you want to get your pens out, and we'll probably post this too on the website, but the phone number to text us is area code 817-668-2395. Once again, that's 817-668-2395, or you can email us at nospinfeedback@gmail.com. That's nospinfeedback@gmail.com. And we encourage you we want to engage with you. You may have a better idea than we had. You may have a different point of view than our points of view. And we want to engage you because remember what we said early on, the growth and evolution of our life and lifestyle is based on communication. So Kendra,
I feel like, for one thing, do know that it's all anonymous. And if we, use your comments or your points of view, all we have is an area code to identify you. So you are, safe. It's anonymous. We're not going to be naming you unless you want to, specifically be brought in on something. Basically, look, we are here to brainstorm on how to make rodeo better. That's how we both spent our entire adult lives. And so, it's cool if everybody doesn't agree. And we welcome people that have better ideas than ours because we are in a lot of meetings and a lot of conversations and a lot of conference calls and a lot of places where we can, deliver the message to the right people to make a difference. So
just know that that's not our intent here. Our intent is to talk about ideas, not people. To talk about thought-provoking processes, not drama. I don't like being told I'm wrong, so bring it on.
And I just want to let everybody know that we're not selling this information. We're not going to use it for anything other than the discussion that we're having here on this podcast. It's not our intent to make a big marketing list. We won't email you. We're not going to text you back. So feel free to use it anonymously.
Yeah, that's a good point. We're not going to text you back. So don't even go there. You will not get us to engage via text. Hopefully your thought is provoking enough to get on the podcast. Anything else, Kendra?
No, the more the merrier when it comes to good ideas.
Amen. Okay, our next segment of the show is Point of View. It's our favorite one. This is where Kendra and I talk about a topic, kind of try to roll it around like a Rubik's Cube, getting all the colors in the right side of the cube. And so I want to frame this up for our listeners that may not be as deep into rodeo as others. Our Kendra titled the point of view today, Big Money. So here it is. In this sport, you get to the Super Bowl, the NFR, by money won. That's how you get there. The top 15 highest money earners in the course of the calendar year are allowed to come to the NFR and compete. And by the way, the NFR is where most of these people pay all their bills. They go into debt, they rodeo hard, 170 to 200 days a year, run up credit cards and things to get to the NFR, where the payout is, the money's big at the NFR, and it's grown. It was in 1959, I think the payout was like $50,000. And so it's grown. And so money counts. Well, this is and you'll see Kendra and I probably be on, it'll be interesting to see Kendra's point of view on this. We try hard not to pre-talk about this because we're going to try to let this be natural, which may be good or bad. But the thought of this is, so if money counts to get to the NFR, is it fair to have rodeos and payouts that are significantly higher than other rodeos? So you win a bunch of rodeos, and to use round numbers, you win $1,000, $1,000, $1,000, and you get to the end and you can win $50,000 and get basically a 50 times jump in the standings. Is that fair? And so that's the framework, I think, when we talk about big money, for some of you that might not understand it or want to try to figure out what we're talking about. And is that fair? Is that fair for the guys that went all year long and maybe had more wins but didn't have the right wins? And is that fair when you're dealing with animals and situations and judges and ground and all these anomalies that can really handicap your physical ability to be that great athlete? So at that, Kendra, kicking it off to you. What's your point of view on big money?
Okay, well, I'm all about it. In my perfect world, I would live for the day that there would be 50 places a year, 100 places a year where a cowboy or a cowgirl could win $50,000. The conversation about this from decades ago that really stands out was at Salinas one year with my dear friends Cody Hill and Fred Whitfield, iconic, dominant cowboys. I love them both. We had this conversation when it was like, okay, Houston, 50,000. Remember, I came from the first day of the PBR. The PBR has proven something. Their champion each year gets $1 million. I mean, that's awesome. They were saying, well, this is BS. Because there's one, you just, one spot at the end of ours automatically taken. You're going to start determining world championships on one. And my point respectfully was, you have to have one before you can have 10, before you can have 50. And so I'm like, you have to count it. And if you don't count it, there's not a lot of motivations for the rodeos to do it, I'm thinking. The other thing I'm going to say, there are a couple other points. I'm not for top loading. So also in my, fairy tale
what do you mean by top loading?
When you go to, when first pays X and then you plummet after that, that's top loading. So to me, instead of, 50, does it then go to 25? I feel like, anyway, what I would love to see is 50, 40, 30, 20, 10, where a lot of people leave. And here's what I will say this also. People have chuckled that I'm like the official, unofficial, whatever, education czar of rodeo. No one has encouraged more rodeo kids to get a good education than me. I am all about, charity, helping communities. I realize a lot of rodeo committees use this, they use it when selling their rodeo. This is for the kids, and that's wonderful. There are places that have given millions and millions of dollars to charity, and that's fantastic. But I would love for those same committees and communities to consider giving the stars of the show a raise. And when I worked for the PRCA, I actually had a philosophy or an idea to throw in the hat. I proposed, and it never made it anywhere, but I proposed after a conversation with Trevor Brazil, actually one time, that we give an annual award in each of the categories, small, medium, large, indoor, outdoor, whatever, for the committee who raises their prize money the most in the course of a year, biggest percentage raise. And that goes back to, I'm a cowboy. So I just don't forget to give the stars of the show a raise. That's all I'm saying. I mean, we all expect and work hard to get a raise, and I want more than Ty Murray and Trevor Brazil to leave with something at the end of it. I don't want to have Hall of Fame Cowboys friends leave broke. The profit margin is so hard, and so it's just like, you know what? The 2023 Grand Champion steer at Houston this year, that kid got $550,000 for that steer. That is so cool. That's headlines. That's awesome. That's amazing. But let's not forget, the stars of the show, the Cowboys, Cowgirls.
There's a lot of spines to this point of view, lots of different angles. So in 2017, when the Days of 47 Rodeo reorganized and I started being a part of it, we did $1 million event, and we had to fight and negotiate hard and convince the PRCA that we wanted to pay out $1 million because there's this notion of more money is unfair. Or they just don't want more money. Even this year in some of my situations, trying to distribute money that goes to the contestants can seem way more complicated than it needs to be. And here's what I said to them back in the day. I said, well, you're going to pay out $50,000. This was before Houston. You're going to pay out $50,000 to the winner. Yes, we are. Well, that'll, just like you said, that'll put somebody in the NFR. Or that will this. And I think our payout was 50, at the end was 50, 25, and 12.5. But then it dropped off considerably after that. I think we played 6 holes. So my original argument was if we do it, then Houston will do it. Then Calgary will do it. Well, fast forward to today, right? There are, Kendra, I would say 8 or 10 rodeos out there where you can win 50,000. And I mean, if you won every round, you can win 30 anyway if you win every round. And if you look at Extreme Bulls, which this may not be fair, but with day money and everything, there's these guys that win. They're the only guy to ride in Extreme Bulls, and boom, $35,000. Okay, is that fair? 35,000, one hit, rode one bull, everybody else got thrown off. If we don't raise the tide then all the boats don't raise. And you got to step out there. We did it. We had a lot of controversy about it in 17. Now you've got Calgary and you've got Houston. I mean, there's $1 million at the Governor's Cup, right? That's coming up, which is kind of what spurred this conversation. You're talking about what, $40,000 or $50,000 in each discipline. That's going to move people a long way. And I'll just say this, that we should never not want to grow the prize money. Okay. I think that's a mistake.
I could not agree more.
I think you agree with that. Now, here's the problem from a rodeo committee standpoint. I get asked, should we raise our prize money? It'll make our show better. Well, I hate to say it, Kendra, but unless it's significant increase, it doesn't guarantee that your rodeo is going to be any better because guys turn out, guys look at their situations. And again, we'll probably argue about this, but I think they should continue to raise their prize money because the average income of a pro rodeo athlete, I think, is somewhere between $40,000 and $80,000. And if you
that's not net.
I know. I agree with that. But here's the deal. and I'm walking a risky line here. In sport, we want to be a sport. You got to be good. You got to beat everybody. Okay. And we can't give out a blue ribbon, a light blue ribbon, a light blue ribbon, a light blue ribbon. We can't take this money, Kendra, and spread it out over 62 holes so that the winner wins 9,000, second place wins 8,700, because we got to keep this fair for all those guys that can't win. Here's the deal. Patrick Mahomes, right? He's getting $50 million a year. The third string quarterback, I think, is getting about $1 million. There's a reason. Because that third string quarterback isn't as good as Mahomes. So I disagree with you. I think to win an event, a big event, it should be big enough money that it creates drama for the fans, that it creates pressure for the Cowboys, that it really weeds out the best. There are guys, Trevor Brazile, Ty Murray, there are guys that just could function under that pressure. And there are equally as good athletes that cannot keep their head straight and win. And that is another element of being the best. If you want to win all this money, Kendra, just be great.
Okay, so no arguments there. I'm not into excuses, and neither any of the champions. From a media standpoint, also, I get the 50,000 is sexy. It's cool. I'm not against the 50,000. I'm all about it. It's something I can actually take to, and I have over the years, some mainstream outlets, even though 50,000 is chump change compared to other sports. And I don't agree. I don't really understand it, but I know sometimes they pay over 10 places, like maybe in the barrel racing or something. That's what they have chosen to do. They have their reasons, and I should learn more about the thought there before. I'm not criticizing it, but I get it. That's maybe too diluted for what we're talking about here. But what I say is, if you want to make it a sudden death situation, the luck of the draw is a huge factor. And you're going to say, well, tough shit. Okay. That's life. But it's tricky because making $50,000 a sudden death, because that's where we're headed.
I get that. I understand that from the athlete's point of view. But the major organizations in our sport are associations. Everybody's opinion matters, and it should, because they fund the association. It's all the players that fund professional rodeo. But if you ask the top five, if you pose the same question to the guys that are currently winning, they don't care if it's top loaded, and they might not win. And they might say, well, yeah, I might draw the bad calf, but they know that at the end of the day, they've learned to circumvent those circumstances and come out on top more than not. Now, it's interesting to me that back in the 70s, the RCA, I think it was then, they had some meetings with Tex Schramm. Tex Schramm owned the Dallas, he was the general manager or president or something of the Dallas Cowboys, and they were really trying to figure out how do we become a sport way back in the 70s. And Tex Schramm's comment at that time was, you're not a real sport if it's nickels and dimes all the way for a year to, and I'm paraphrasing this, to create a champion. There has to be a Super Bowl. Now, I think we've gotten there. I think we've improved that because the NFR now can change who wins. And I think that's important. And here's the deal. Kendra, if you want these rodeos to put up big money, you want to know why the NFR is the number one rodeo? Because here's the deal. If I buy a ticket, Kendra, I see the top 15. I know I'm going to see the best livestock and the best cowboys go for the best money. If you're another rodeo out there, you're not guaranteed any of the best. And sometime down the road, we'll have a point of view on Tearing Rodeo. Oh my God, Tearing Rodeo. Oh no, here they come. They're coming at me with guns. But the truth is, Kendra, in my opinion, that the reason the NFR is so successful, and by the way, the PBR, right, is that when you go, it's the best against the best every time, and that's what you get at the NFR, and it's big money, and it's life-changing drama, just like you said, Mayfield, right? Things can happen there. That's why you have to love it as a journalist, right? You crave it. And we have to create those more than one time a year, Kendra. This has to happen more than once a year. And what that means is that it's going to be real agony of defeat for the 6th place guy. I know why they pay 10 holes, because the number 10, 12, 15, 16, they're trying to make a living. And I get that. They need the money, and I get that. But the truth is, until we have 5 or 6 of these throughout the course of the year that are game changers, they're majors, they're big deals, I just don't see us increasing. And you're right. That means that someone might draw the right calf, Kendra, right? That it might not have been the best roper that day.
But bucking horse, bull, whatever. I'm with you. Look, this would be a complete waste of time of a conversation if there were even 10 opportunities like this in the course of a year. And the NFR, absolutely, the money, the fact that guys have come from 15th to 1st there, that's absolutely awesome. But back to Tex Schramm, maybe that's why they experimented those 3 years in the 70s with making NFR only earnings around the world champions, and it did not work, and everybody hated it. And it's asterisks for the rest of time on those championships compared to PRCA's championships. But I'm not afraid to try new things as a sport, and we're going to have to evolve or go extinct, so.
But you said you don't believe in top loading money, but you then followed it up with, I think it's really cool in the NFR that you can go from 15th to 1st. There's a reason for that.
But everyone over the course of an entire season had the same chance to earn a spot to be there. Now go at it, have a gunfight, big money. It's awesome. Look, this would all be moot if we could have more than, that you could count on one hand of chances to win 50,000 during the regular season. It would be fantastic. I'm all about 50,000 opportunities counted, and I always have been. You have to start somewhere. This one, now another one, now another one. We need more of those. And understandably, from a rodeo standpoint, they become a big part of our year-long conversation, right? When they're one of those rodeos, I mean, we can't have enough of those. That's all I'm saying. Yeah. We need more to where it just doesn't stand out so much as such a, rarity.
Well, and that's why progressives, right, are great gaining traction, because it's okay from the fan sponsors, that side. You can, you got to win here, then you win there, then you win here, then it has to win. Now, I am against, even though I think it's great drama, I'm against the top 2 competing for the win, personally, because I think there's so much that can go wrong. But I am 100%, as you see, I'm in favor of 8 guys getting there and 8 guys, I'm sorry, going for top-loaded money. Let them win 50, and then maybe it's 6, 7, and 8 need to get paid because they made it there. I agree. They need to get some money, right? But it's got to mean something to be the best that day. And it's got to mean something to the fans. It's got to mean something to the standings. It's got to mean something. And that means top loading payouts. Now,
but if we're selling these things out because there's such great watching, maybe we can consider 50, 40, 30, 20. And I'm with you on the 2 people thing, where that can really suck for everyone, is if the first guy goes out and, say in the steer wrestling, the first guy gets a no time. Well, then it's like, oh, here he goes, just trying to stop the clock. And it's not such great watching or whatever. I'm with you. But if you're talking about packed houses, these amazing shows, is 50, 40, 30, 20
okay, but let's do the math. It's not, but I've been the guy that's sitting there and said, hey, look, I make it up, $500,000 worth of prize money. Now I divide that by 9, because in our sport, there's 9 disciplines. Then you want me to divide it by 6 And when you start to look at that, Kendra, and you just start to do the math, right? $500,000 is a lot of money for a rodeo to put together. A lot, right? And you add the entry fees to that and it goes up. But when you start to do the math, it starts to dwindle. And all of a sudden you're looking, you're like, we're writing a check for $500,000 and our winner's getting paid $12,500 in the bareback riding? How'd that happen? Well, it's simple math. And believe me, I understand the point of view of the association. I understand the point of view that we need to spread this money out because we need to keep everybody going, right? Help them pay their bills. I get it because, by the way, we need cowboys and cowgirls at all the rodeos. And if they quit and go home and go back to nursing or shoeing horses, they're not in the rodeo arena. I get that. I'm not saying that there's a simple solution to this. You say, well, everybody has a chance to go to the NFR. They do. Everybody has a chance to get into any particular rodeo. You want to know what that chance is? Just be good. Be better than everybody else. It's the guy that has a great ride 8 out of 10 times, or at least a qualified ride. He's a winner. Not just that one good ride where you drew the bull into your hand and 5 other guys got thrown off and you get to go to the bar and say, I'm the champion because I'm the best. The system shouldn't create the winners. The quality of the competition should create the winners. That's sport, not the system. We can't set the system up where the losers feel like they ought to be winners. Get in the practice pen.
I couldn't agree more, but, the guy who was maybe 1 point behind Casey Field at your rodeo and ended up third because it was second place was a half a point behind him. He's not a loser. So he rode his ass off. He probably rode a rank one. He was awesome. And I get it. There's always going to be a headliner. I'm a media person. I get that. But that doesn't mean the guy who was 1 point behind should walk away with chump change.
Well, but it's a field goal kick in the last 3 seconds that crowns a Super Bowl champion. Now, let me qualify something. When I use the term losers, which I probably shouldn't do, I don't actually mean losers. I'm not talking about the top 20 or 30 because I think the top 20 or 30 in any discipline are probably there's usually a few standouts, right? There is. And it could be a little bit luck and a little bit fate and a lot talent. There's standouts. I'm going to stop using the term losers. I'm just saying there are people out there that are consistently probably 30 and down, right? For whatever reason, whether it's talent or fate or whatever, how hard they go, what their life is, mental status, right? Are they able to handle pressure? But the people that are down there that don't win on a consistent basis should not dictate the future of the people that are winning. That's what I'm trying to say.
Fair. Professional sports don't tend to be just walk on. I mean, the same. But trying to make everybody happy in rodeo has proven impossible. And so, what's best for the circuit person might not be what's best for the top 15 type, might not be what's best for the person from this coast to that coast or in the middle.
It's extremely complicated. Disciplines are all extremely different. Rodeos are extremely different. The closer you can keep the conditions to being fair for everybody, the better off you are. But I just think that fair for this group might be different than fair for this group, right? And that's why it bothers me. It bothers me. I'm sorry when you see a real ace at one of these small rodeos, because all those other guys that entered it, they're like, I can't beat him. And half of the time, even if they outride him, the judges give the king 3 more points. We've just seen it. And I just think if you could keep those sharks out of the minnow's water, let people get confidence. It's the same thing. They're putting these little kids in these mini rodeos on animals that they shouldn't be riding. They need confidence. You got to win to believe you can win. And so what would be wrong with win here, move up to here? By the way, that's where the other sports do it. There's minor leagues.
It's fair, and way back, my very dear friend Jake Barnes said, Kendra, there's no way I should be allowed to be here. And that was when we were at the Dodge National Circuit Finals Rodeo in Pocatello, Idaho. And he's like, this should be a day in the sun for the weekend warriors. But since it counts, I have no choice but to be here. And he won it several times. He knew, and he stated openly, I should not be allowed to be here.
Yeah. Greg, you got any thoughts on this?
Well, my point of view is that there's so many other circumstances that kind of dictate placement and who gets into rodeos, who can't get into rodeos, especially with rough stocks and turnouts. And, the timed event seems to be a little bit more consistent with, anybody who signs up can get a shot. So I think there's a lot of tiering going on. I agree that the winner, there should be some prize to winning. Now, maybe it's you make it to the final round, you're guaranteed, this much money, or you get a paycheck for getting there. And then there's the prize money on top of it. I mean, there's a bunch of different solutions I think that could help with that, but you still need to have some kind of a gap that allows winners to, get the motivation, because a lot of times if you're paying out fairly equal money, why does a guy have to do anything harder if he just can live in fifth place all the time and still make the NFR?
That's a good point. But I think we've had really good conversation. Let's both kind of sum up point of view. Here's the deal. I agree with you that big money, I think we both agree, and then I'll let you pay us out of this. We both agree that more money in the sport is not damaging. I think we vary a little bit on how that money is distributed and what's the best use for lifting the entire sport with that money. Listen, I think it's fantastic that Houston and Calgary, you got to admit, Kendra, it's come a long, long way in a short time. It really has. 5 years has made a world of difference. You see guys going into the NFR with a couple $100,000, several of them. That's big. Now, I think still 15th's coming in with like 60 or 70. I don't know what the real number is. And they probably, if you do the math, I like to do math occasionally. If you go 60,000 miles, if you're a number 15 guy, you go 60,000 miles that year, you spent $37,000 on fuel, which is half of what some of these guys are qualifying in at 15. So
look, I'm so excited for the fact Stetson Wright is going to be winning $1 million in a season. Ty Murray and Trevor Brazil are doing triple backflips over that, and so am I. That's amazing. That's awesome. Last I looked, I think the top 5 saddle bronc riders in the world had over 300,000 won. We are making progress. I just live for the day when we can come up with a way where the best in our sport have something to show for it when they're done, and can actually make a living doing this. And we've come a million miles, but we gotta keep working hard to get further.
Well, until there's more money in the sport, if you want the best in the sport to have something to show for it, then you've got to top load the money. Just saying, until the money gets up there to where you're that way. But that's okay. We agree. We agree. Kendra's really going to cuss me after this podcast is over.
We better shut it down.
We better shut it down.
It's a great conversation, and it needs to be had by everyone, because the more we can talk about these things, the more people talk about it, the better chance of sifting out some ideas that might really work and make a difference.
Yeah, and I just want everybody to know on my end, because I've been accused of this, I'm going to make this really clear. I love our sport, okay? I love what we do. I love my kids. I'm hard on them, okay? I'm hard on them. I have high expectations for my kids because I love them. I have high expectations for the athletes, the committees, the sponsors, the administrators of our sport because I love it. And when I'm critical of it, lots of people say, oh, you hate everything about it. That is not true. It's just simply not true. I've got a degree. I could be doing a lot of other things, and I'm in rodeo, and I'm in it because I love it. I love all parts of it. I love all sections of it. I really do. And sometimes the truth, you said this, sometimes the truth hurts, and maybe it needs to hurt a little bit so that we don't keep injuring ourselves the same way. Would you agree?
Complacency gets us nowhere. So we have to have hard conversations, and we have to stand up and keep trying to make it better. I mean, it's come a long way, but it's, there's no end to how far it can go if we all keep stepping out to the edge a little bit more.
Having conversations like this that may not benefit you, right? You got to have these conversations. Now, let me remind all of you listeners out there who I bet there's a bunch of you that are going to print a picture of me and put it at the dead center of your dartboard. But here's the deal. We're interested in what you have to say. You can text us anonymously at 817-668-2395. Kendra and I want to know what you think about what we're talking about our points of view. Or you can email us at nospinfeedback@gmail.com. One more time, that's a text line. We're calling it our no spinners, right? Our no spinners. Hopefully I think we've got like 7 fans now. So we are marching up the charts with no spinners. It's 817-668-2395. We want to encourage all of you to keep Maria Montero and the Montero family in your prayers, that they might have some peace in a terrible time. And Kendra and I challenge each of you to consider sending something, get a pen out. This is a challenge to all you no spinners. Get up and do something here. It's P.O. Box 1010, Winnemucca, Nevada, 89446. That's Maria Montero. P.O. Box 1010, Winnemucca, Nevada, 89446. Step up, stand out, be a cowboy, help them out. Final thoughts, Kendra?
We just have to keep trying harder.
We do have to keep trying harder. Well, that's it for today. This is episode number 2. Thank you to Greg Teagarden, our producer, the amazing and brilliant Kendra Santos, and me, Tommy Joe Lucia. Until we talk again in a couple weeks, you be blessed. Have a good day.